My name is Adam Pittman, and I work here in the technical marketing group at ESRI, and I'm joined by the chief ESRI cartographer, Charlie Fry. Charlie and I are going to spend the next hour discussing and demonstrating how map templates help you be more productive by giving you a professionally designed springboard to jumpstart your own map design. Let's first talk about what map templates are and what they have to offer. As GIS professionals, maps are one of the pillars of our daily work. They provide us a mechanism to communicate with our audience, and they help our users understand the value of thinking spatially. All of us have enjoyed any given, take your pick, of a National Geographic map. They do a great job of designing the map in a way that helps to communicate the story behind the map. And this is what I think many of us struggle with in producing our own maps. And if you're like me, you've spent hours trying to copy the cartography or the design of a great map, you know that it is a very time-consuming process. My challenges have never been the lack of great data. They've always been in having the experience, the skills, or just the time to get it done. And this is where the templates come in. Charlie and his team of cartographers have spent the last 18 months helping to organize and create resources to help the entire ArcGIS community produce professional quality maps. And they've done this by providing templates for us to work from. Now, these templates contain map documents, sample data, style files. Some templates include tools and models, even configurable applications to help you quickly create web or mobile applications. And they all have documentation so that we can flip through the documentation and get up and running quickly. I think you can start to see how these templates are going to help us. We can get professionally designed maps and styles, that sample data I mentioned, configurable applications, and all of these factors combine to save us significant time and money. And in many cases, we can be up and running in minutes and not hours or days with a well-designed map. So what I'd like to do now is to show you a few examples of templates in action. And to do this, I'm going to open up ArcMap. So what I've got now in ArcMap is two services, and these services, you could almost follow along with me if you wanted to. They're available to all of us. We've got the World Topographic Map Service and the World Street Map Service, and these are online base maps provided by ESRI. So what I'm going to do is zoom into the city of Pasadena, and we'll zoom in a little bit more. We'll pass a few scales, and we'll see right now on this service, more and more data become available. And if I zoom in pretty tight here, we can start to see buildings, the streets, all of this information here, and here's the Rose Bowl right there. All of this information was provided by the city of Pasadena. They really served as the model for putting together this template that we're looking at now. So we'll see this theme continue with using templates to produce content that we all can leverage. And you'll see more and more cities displayed here on these services. Let's zoom out to another area. We'll go to where I am right now. This is the ESRI main campus. So this is using that same topographic map template in a service. And as I zoom in, we'll see the campus or the facilities that are mapped out for ESRI. Now, this is using the campus base map template, and we'll explore these templates on the map template gallery in just a moment. But what this is doing is taking the ESRI facilities and mapping them out. So you can take this template and you can map your own facilities out and map your own buildings and your immediate surroundings. Let's go around the world to Hong Kong. We'll zoom into Hong Kong, and you can see what our distributor in Hong Kong has done is that they have taken their data, their local information, their authoritative content, and they've applied the street map template to it. So here is their data. City of Pasadena, the distributor here in Hong Kong, they all use the template to represent their information, gave it back to us, and then we in turn host it on our services so that we all can use it in our base map. And if you're interested in doing something like this with your content and having it available 24/7 on one of these base maps, then you can contact your local sales rep to help you get going with that. Now, this is really some templates in action. Let's take a look at where you even go to get these templates. And this is an important URL, resources.esri.com/map templates. That's going to take you directly to the map template gallery. So if we click on the map template gallery here, I'll scroll over, and you can see all of the templates that are hosted. There's several for you to choose from. Here's the topographic map template. This is the one we were just looking at online. Here's the geologic map. There's the campus-based map. You can download and use all of these. Let's take a look at one of these in a little bit more detail, the local government infrastructure-based map template. So if I come over here, I can read a summary about this template and how this design is, I guess what you really need to, what kind of data you really need to have to put into this template. So you can read all about the description of that here, and there's certainly a community theme here, so you can read what other users have experienced in using these templates. And Charlie and his group are quick to respond on these forums, so this is a great place to contact them too. So if I were to download this template by clicking the download button, what do you actually get? Well, I've downloaded this ahead of time, and let me show you what you get here. So you get a PDF that outlines information about the template. You get a folder containing a number of style files. These are professionally designed styles that you can, we'll see in a demonstration a little bit later, pretty much immediately start using. There are sample ArcMap documents as well as sample data that you can use to learn about how the template works. We even have documentation in here. So if I take a look at this documentation, so here is an HTML file that comes along with this template, really just outlining the details of what it takes to make this template happen. So some of these templates may use extensions like Maplex or Spatial Analyst. Some may use advanced features like cartographic representations. So all of those things can be discovered here. And you can go from this document to really help you get started. So let's go over what we just talked about. We introduced the map templates. We showed you a few examples online of kind of map templates in action, where you can go to download the map templates. Now is a good time to take some of your questions, and Charlie and I would be happy to take those. Charlie?
Thank you, Adam. We've got a few questions that have already come in. Natalie from St. Cloud asks, are these templates designed to be used for publishing base map services? And I'd say a third of the templates are explicitly designed for publishing base map services, and they are actually the designs for the base maps that we include on ArcGIS Online for the street map and the world topographic base map, as well as one that is an overlay or a reference service that puts text and boundaries and so on top of imagery to make it kind of like the hybrid maps that you see from Google or Microsoft. And just for everybody else who may not know, the difference between a base map and a reference map, a base map is something we've designed in particular to facilitate mashup. So when we design that map, we make sure the colors for the map, and as we symbolize it, are not in the foreground of the map so much. So we tend to use blues and greens and so on. And that leaves the darker colors and the brighter colors for you who want to mash something up to make sure that what you're putting on top of that map is actually going to be easy to see and find for the people who you're making your map for. Then Rachel from Braden is asking, what is the difference between an ArcMap template versus these templates? And what Rachel's talking about is the old ArcMap templates, or that's what I call them anyway, or the .mxt files. And those were and still are actually, a way for you to share a design for a map, in the sense of a ArcMap usage experience. So that not just includes the cartography, but also included the user interface components. You may have customized how the user interface looked by dragging tools onto a new toolbar and making sure that toolbar was available. Or if you had any custom ArcObjects tools that had been developed for your work, that this is the way you would deliver them to the people who needed to use those tools. The templates that we're talking about this morning are actually specifically for sharing cartographic best practices and helping to focus, particularly people who may not be familiar with ArcMap, on a set of functionality that will get them to the, as we like to think of it, the 20% or the 5% of ArcMap that they need to know initially, rather than trying to sift through everything that's possible in ArcMap. These new templates give you a quick, focused experience to get going with what you need to work on. Nick from Rockford is asking, do all these templates rely on Maplex? Many of them do, and the reason for that is that we're trying to put forth professional quality maps, and Maplex is our professional quality label placement engine in ArcGIS. If you've got an ArcInfo license, you have a Maplex license as part of that. But if you've also got a ArcEditor or an ArcView license, the Maplex extension can be purchased and added to that, and then you can use these templates with either of those licensing levels of software as well. Jen from Bismarck asks, what is the license level needed to use these templates? Typically, it's ArcInfo to take full advantage of everything that you might need to do to make your data useful for the template, and often we also require the spatial analyst, for instance, if you need to do some reprocessing of an elevation data set to, for instance, we use the focal stats tool to smooth elevation data before making contours or something like that. But to actually, just explore the template and maybe even use it with data you've already got, in many cases you can be using an ArcView license and everything's going to work just fine. So it's really a matter of what do you have to do to your data to make it ready for this template. So I'd say in the year we've had templates out, people, our users' data has already been improving, so fewer and fewer people need to have an ArcInfo license just to get going. Rajesh in Sacramento is asking, how do I integrate ESRI's maps into business intelligence tools? We actually have a new product that came out earlier, in the middle of last year, sorry. And that's I think I've just forgot the name. It's, Adam, do you remember the name of that? For what? The new SQL Server-based map product?
Mapit.
Mapit, thank you. So Mapit is something that we've set up specifically as an interface, so to speak, to your SQL Server database. It's got some predefined Silverlight applications to use, and it's specifically to make the geographic information that's in your business intelligence database come to life in web maps and web applications that take advantage of mapping. Let's see here. We've got a couple more questions here. Eric in San Antonio asks, is ArcGIS 9.31 required to use these templates? Only in a couple of cases, and if you look at the template gallery, you'll see that the version of software we use to author the template is listed there. And in most cases, you're looking at the calendar going by for us, so it's not that we're using special functionality in 9.31 to make the template work. Let's see here. Michael in San Francisco asks, I really like the ArcMap layer model HTML included with the templates. Is there a tool I can use to create that for my MXDs? And yes, there is. If you go to the ArcScripts webpage, you can search for X-ray tools, and that's what we're using to create those HTML files. And so download that, and then you can use that to look at both your map or your geodatabase to get the content that you see in the documentation folder. So I'll go ahead and hand this back to Adam for the next part of our presentation.
All right, thanks, Charlie, and thanks everyone for the questions. Keep them coming. We've got 2 more question and answer sections. So if we didn't get your question then, we'll try and get it on the next one. Let's turn our attention to using the map templates with our own content. The map templates are quite versatile, and how you use them is really driven by what you want to do. You may create a printed map, a map for the web, or perhaps you'll package individual layers to share with others. Regardless of how you plan to use the template, your biggest question so far is probably, is this going to work with my data? And chances are very slim that you're just going to download a template and immediately start working with your data with that template. I mean, it could happen, but it's likely that it won't. And the reason I say that is that your data schema and how you store and represent your information it probably doesn't match exactly with the template, and that's fine. The important thing to remember is that the template is a reference for helping you design a better map. It's not a form factor that you must mold to. You may find value in using the sample data to understand how Charlie and his groups organized or designed these maps, and perhaps you modify how you manage your data as a result. I think the best way to use the template is as a pattern for your own map design. Everything about that map template is designed to be readable. So see how the map is organized. Use the style files that come with the template to get up and running quickly and have immediately useful layers and maps. And like I said a moment ago, the sample data is going to give you an idea on what fields you may want to start recording with your own data. So at this point, I'd like to go back to another demonstration, and I'd like to show you how we can apply the template, in this case the topographic template, to just a default map that I have. And I downloaded some data from the city of Austin, Texas, so thank you, Austin. And I start from scratch, and we'll see how long it takes us to get the template up and going. So before I do that, I'd like to open up the sample ArcMap document that comes with the topographic template. So here it is. Let's just study it for a little bit. You're all probably, your eyes are immediately drawn to the map. It's Redlands, California. It's very readable. We can see the ESRI campus just off to the western edge of the map there. We can see buildings and streets, and everything is presented in a readable, easy to understand format. Okay, so there's nice design and colors, but what I'd really like to draw your attention to is how we are accomplishing this. And if you take a look at the table of contents, you can see that there are several group layers here. So these group layers are organizing content in this map by scale. So let's take a look at level 16. And if I expand that, you can see all of the different layers that are a part of this template. Are you going to have all of these layers? Chances are you're not, and that's okay. Like I said, you can just take and use what you need to. But all of these layers are being drawn, represented, or labeled for the most readable experience at this scale. Okay, so that's how we organize these. These scales also help us organize our map if you choose to publish this out as a map service, because these different scales are going to help us create our caching scales for things like Bing, Google, or the ArcGIS Online caching schemes. So we can more easily control how our maps are represented on the web and make sure that everything we're setting up is displayed the way we intend it to be set up. So these are really a few best practices for organizing and designing how your maps are going to be structured. So now that we've taken a look at this template and used it as our reference here, let's go to my map. And you can see there's a pretty large contrast between the template map that we were just looking at and the map that I have. I pretty much just loaded the data, and this is pretty much the picture that, or the symbology that ArcMap picked for me. So in all intent and purposes, I am starting from scratch. So how do we start off designing our map in a better fashion? Well, first, I'm going to take the layers that I have, and notice I only have a few layers, and that's fine. I'm going to select all of these and put them in a group layer. So I put them in a group layer. And let's call it, we'll do level 16 of the template. Let's open up the properties of this group layer and ensure that it is being displayed at the extents that we want it to be displayed. So I'm going to set the 15,000 and 5,001 as my scale ranges for this data. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using the template by going to the styles, my style references, and I'm just going to add in the styles that I get with the template. And these are the styles that I showed you a moment ago. I'm going to choose the 9K style. I'm going to add that in, and let's go ahead and turn off the default ESRI style just to make it easier to see the template styles. And all I'm going to do is start pointing and clicking. So here I've got a hospital hospitals mapped out here. So I'm going to choose the hospital landmark, and I'm going to keep going through my data to do the same thing. And I might change some things. I don't have to use exactly what's here. For my rest of my parcels, I'm going to use urban areas, but I don't want it to have an outline. That's fine. Update our lakes and ponds. So see, I'm just finding the name of the symbol and pointing and clicking. Do the same thing for the local parks. You guys are getting the idea of what I'm doing. My map is really starting to come together quickly. I have shaded relief for Austin. So let's go ahead and get the shaded relief map going. And I know that in the template, there is a 55% transparent value set on this. And so there we go. You can start to see now that my map is really starting to take shape. One of the things that I noticed when I read the documentation of the topo template is that for buildings, they're using cartographic representations. Now, if you're using Editor or higher, you can create cartographic representations by right-clicking on your feature and converting that symbology out to a representation. Now, I've already done that, so what I'm going to do is just copy this building layer and paste it back in. So now that I have two, I'm going to open up the properties, go to my symbology, choose the representations dialog, and here you can see the XY offset set that we have made for these buildings. And when I hit OK, you can see the cartographic effect that has. It really makes those buildings pop out. It really adds texture to our map, helps us see the buildings better. Okay, so that's using a cartographic representation. And one thing that I would like to point out about cartographic reps is, I've been using this type of a style for a while, and not too long ago, a couple years ago, to pull something like this off, you would have to actually copy and reproduce your building's layer and do an XY shift permanently on the data to be able to kind of pull this off. And cartographic representations are saving us time and disk space because all we're doing is representing this building to really give us the shadow effect. We're not duplicating the work. Okay, let's do the last of our symbology here. Let's get our minor streets updated. Get the freeway ramps and the major streets and freeways. So again, I'm just pointing and clicking with the symbology that was defined in the template. We can see that my streets kind of look choppy and don't really look good on my map. You can see the overlining here, or how they're kind of overrunning each other. Well, we can fix that, and I read in the documentation that they are using advanced symbol levels to clean this up. So I'm going to do the same. And I say okay, and so now we've got a good-looking map of Austin, Texas in a matter of minutes using the style files that came along with the template. My data doesn't exactly match the template, but hey, that's okay. I've got a good-looking map now, and it's well designed with my group layer. Now, the last thing that we're going to want to do is turn on our labeling or label these features. Well, this particular template uses the Mapplex labeling extension, so I'm going to turn that on. And let's label our parks. So I can see the parks that have been labeled here. And rather than me trying to figure out how best to label the parks and what color the labels should be, I'm going to use the style files that came along in the template for doing this for me. So I'm going to go to the Labels tab, point to Label Styles, and along with the template, you also get these. I point to Local Parks, I say OK, and now my parks are labeled. I'll do the same thing for my streets. Let's go ahead and label these. You can see my streets are just kind of haphazardly placed on the map, and it doesn't really look all that great with what we're doing right now, and it's not readable for sure. So I'm going to open up the properties of the label, the streets layer, and rather than blindly labeling all of my features the same way, I'm going to define some classes at which I choose to label these streets. So let's start by labeling the minor roads. Say OK. And to ensure that we're only labeling the minor roads, let's do a SQL query here to pull out that layer. So I know that my minor roads are this value 6. I'm going to just grab one of the cartographic template styles here, label styles, and I'm just going to find minor streets. Say OK. And you can see now my minor streets are labeled legibly right here on my map. Let's do the same thing for one more layer. I'll come in and add another class called major roads. Let's do a SQL query and ensure that we're only grabbing the major roads, and my major roads are equal to 3. Say OK, let's grab a label style and grab the major streets. And you can see the process that I'm doing in setting this up. Now I would continue doing this for my freeways or anything else that I wanted to label in the map. I just point to a label style and set it up, okay? And I would need to also go through and do the rest of my scales for this particular map. But in a matter of minutes, I've gone from scratch, a default map, to ending up with a well-designed map that we're seeing right here. So to kind of recap what we just talked about, I showed you the value in a template. We talked about how best to use the template, and you saw how I started pretty much from scratch and was up and running in a matter of minutes with a well-designed map. And we saw what a well-designed map is really all about. So at this point, Charlie and I would love to take some of your questions. Charlie, what do you have for us?
Well, thanks, Adam. We've got a number of questions that have come in while you were showing that demo. George from Miles City asks, what's the benefit of grouping layers? And there's some additional benefits beyond what Adam had explained, which was the idea that you would group the layers by map scale that you were creating for a multi-scale base map. We also group layers when we want to put content that's for the same kind of theme but coming from different sources into one group layer. So for instance, in our base maps, we have content from Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the continental United States in separate data sets. And it's a lot easier to have a group layer for the hydro layers for each of those places. So that way we don't have a very, very long list of layers within each group layer or confronting somebody who's looking at that map document for the first time. And anybody who's looking at that would then know that the hydro data are in a layer called hydro, and if you expand that, you'll see that there are other layers in there. We also have found that as we cache very large maps, like our topographic map, for instance, it's been easier and easier for us as we've gone along to break what we had set up as group layers in just one map document initially into several map documents with a smaller number of group layers, and even take just one group layer out of any of those maps we put into a separate map document, and we can use that map document to cache without actually having a group layer in it. So look at group layers as a good place to learn how to organize a map, and as you gain knowledge and comfort in creating multi-scale base maps, you'll also start to see places where you can take advantage of leveraging group layers in different ways. Brian in Westerville asks, will I be able to publish to ArcGIS Server a base map that I created that uses representations in ArcGIS 10? And what he's, I think, getting to there is that in ArcGIS 9.3.1, the ability to use both Maplex and representations as part of the new MSD or map specification documents that we were serving the new display technology in ArcGIS with did not support yet representations in Maplex. That's been addressed now, and ArcGIS 10 will support both of those. Luther in Southport asks, can you use templates with an Arc editor license level? And yes, you can. And like I said earlier, it's any licensing level can view these templates. In some cases, though, you may need, like with Arc Editor, you may need to have the MapFlex extension available as well to take full advantage of what's in the template. Doug from Friendswood asks, can these templates be used for applications under an ASP license? The superficial answer to that is yes. Any map service you create could be used in such an application. The deeper answer to that gets to the idea of what content you're going to have in that application. And if you're going to use ArcGIS online content, then I would suggest looking in the online help. And there's a topic called ArcGIS Online Content Licensing Summary, and it specifically addresses what your rights as a licensed user of that content are relative to using that content in an ASP application. Ben from Columbia asks, are your map templates compatible with Geo Media? And actually, I don't know whether they are or are not. So sorry about that, Ben, but at least to get you the answer, get you a non-answer, knowing that we did at least see your question. Mikhail from Fort Lauderdale is asking, because I think he has already used the template for the street map and was trying to figure out what he could do with the label properties. And as Adam was showing, he was taking the label style and immediately using all the labeling properties on his data. That's actually a really nice shortcut to replace the workflow where you would go in and individually edit each of the labeling properties that had been set up in the template. But so that to answer your question, yes, the templates are completely editable in the sense that the properties are just layer properties. You have full access to the template documents and in the sense of the maps and layers after you've downloaded them, and they're fully editable. That also kind of brings up a point about how we do a couple of our templates for the topographic map in particular, where we have a annotation version and a labeling version. The annotation versions are based on the idea that we've already created annotation, and we're using that annotation to finish the map. And that's the idea that we wanted to edit the annotation to fine-tune the placement of some of the labels. But there is also the MXD that has the labeling properties in it as well. So that's something to watch for as you download those templates to make sure you know which map document you've opened as you go through the experience. Let's see here. Ben in Columbia asks, will the map templates have zoom levels at which layers appear so we can reference the information for our data? And generally, yes. We found that to be kind of slowly as we started releasing the templates to be a better practice. So if you notice the template that Adam was using, he had the map levels, and there's really two things there. There's a map scale that we cache that map at for that level. And then there's the level, which is what the HTML or the JavaScript clients or Google Earth or Bing Maps call that scale for their web maps. So for every scale that you create in your MXD, a specific map for that you're going to cache, there's a corresponding map level that's in the web map viewer. The Mapping Center blog actually has a blog entry that we did a while back that addresses that. And if you search the Mapping Center blog, you first go to mappingcenter.esri.com and click on the blogs tab, and just search for cache scales.txt, and cache scales is all one word. And that'll get you to a blog entry called "How Can You Tell What Map Scales and something along that lines are shown in your maps." And so that actually has a link to a text file you can download called cachescales.txt. And then in ArcGIS 931, the scale control is customizable in ArcMap. And initially the bottom choice in there is customize this list. If you click that, and then in a dialog that opens up, you can load in the scales that are in that cachescales.txt file. And those will be the cache scales for the Bing Maps and Google Maps tiling scheme that we use to create our maps with. And you can customize those scales to anything you want if you want to use a different tiling scheme. And let's see here, we've got a few questions that have just come in the last couple of minutes. Matt in Huntsville asks, can you use cartographic representations in SDE? And the answer is yes. In fact, any geodatabase, regardless of the DBMS that's behind it, so whether it's SDE using Oracle or SDE using any other DBMS, or personal geodatabases, which use Microsoft Access, or ESRI's file geodatabase, all of those geodatabase formats support cartographic representations. And let's see here, Jenny from Cincinnati asks, can cartographic representations be done on building polygons that are not 3D files? Well, that's actually what Adam was doing. These are just building footprints. There's no 3D information in them. So what we were essentially doing was adding a drop shadow with that representation by offsetting the lower layer representation, so to speak, so it looks like a drop shadow and gives you a 3D effect. So it's not actually 3D buildings. We're just making it look like it, so to speak. And let's see here. Got time for one more question here before we move on to the next section. Lenza in Dayton asks, which would be best to use for a county map, your topo template for large scales or one for the medium scales? I would say you're going to mostly use the large scale template because that's going to be where most of the data that people are interested in a county, but you may also want to use the largest scale or two from the medium scale template as well. We divided those templates up into large, medium, and small scales, mostly because the sample data was getting too large to download easily in one download file. So the idea is that you would pick, given the size of your county, what the best scale that you want to start people out at in your web map, and then find the closest scale to that in one of those templates, and that will be the one you start using, and then you would use all the scales that make sense for you going larger. So thanks a lot for all those questions, and I'll hand this back to Adam for the next part of our presentation.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everybody, for the questions. We've got one more question round, so keep the questions coming. We've learned all about the templates and best practices for using them. Now let's take a look at best practices for sharing all of this great content that we're managing. Now it's become very easy for us to share our information, and in many cases all it takes is the click of a button. We can expose how much or how little our end users see and give them something that is immediately usable. And a couple of vehicles that we use to do that are the layer package, so we can quickly share content with the layer package, as well as services that deliver our maps to, any number of clients, ArcGIS Explorer, ArcMap, the list goes on and on. Now let's talk a little bit more about the layer package. The layer package was introduced at ArcGIS 931. It's a single ready-to-use file containing symbology, labels, the source data. All of this is packaged in one simple single file that you can email, give to someone, or share. In just a couple mouse clicks, you can create a layer package, and we can give this to our users to open up in things like ArcMap, ArcGlobe, and even ArcGIS Explorer. But when we're sharing all this content, it is probably most important to thoughtfully prepare the data that we're giving to others. So there's more than likely going to be fields that we don't need to show other people, or cryptic field names that may mean something to us as GIS professionals, but they may not to others. So we can assign aliases that are meaningful or help others understand the content we're sharing with them. So it's important to be thoughtful about what we're sharing and not just push our content off immediately without giving it consideration. You may be also sharing entire map services, and it's important to document your map. You want others to understand what this map is about. You want this map to be discoverable, and we'll talk about that in a demonstration in just a moment. We also need to be aware of the coordinate space in which our map is established. Now, if we publish our maps, is someone else going to use this to mash up with an online-based map like a Bing or Google or one of the many base maps that ESRI is hosting? If this is going to be the case, then we might consider using a different coordinate system. There's no right or wrong answer. I mean, you know what coordinate system is going to work best for what you're trying to do. But if you are going to publish your base maps with the intent that others are going to fuse them together or create mashups with other services, Web Mercator is a projection that you should probably think strongly about using. Web Mercator has pretty much become the web standard. That's what Google and Bing use certainly for all of their maps, as well as all of our base maps. Web Mercator works really well with 3D services, so that's a bonus there, and it certainly does provide the most options for having others use your base map content. Now, it's also a best practice to cache your base map services, and we could even leverage, gosh, any one of the configurable web mapping applications that you can download from the Resource Center to just plug our services in and go. And we've talked about sharing layer packages and exposing services. Well, this leads us perfectly into ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online is a great place to share and discover content. It's a community where you can go on and sign on and create your own groups for quickly sharing your own information. So I can create a layer package, put it up to ArcGIS Online, and share it with all of you. And we'll do that here in just a second. I can even sign on to ArcGIS Online and create my own groups, so I can kind of have private experiences or more focused experiences on ArcGIS Online with how I'm sharing my data, and we'll see an example of that. ESRI hosts ArcGIS Online, and it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the world. So with that, let's take a look at best practices for sharing our information. So here is our map of Austin, Texas. If I was going to share this, there's a few things that I would need to do, or that I should do. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to go to the Document Properties of ArcMap. You can see that I have filled out the Summary tab here, the title of my map, what category I'd like to place this as. This is a base map. Where I got this data, thank you, City of Austin, and any keywords that might be relevant to discovering this map. Now, not only will other ArcMap users be able to learn my intentions with this map, but if I publish this map as a service, these keywords are going to be discoverable by search engines. So if I publish this map and I search Austin, Texas base map, it's very likely that the search engines are going to pick up the comments that I'm leaving here. These are exposed in the REST API, and my map is going to be more easily discovered, okay? So it's important to document your maps. If I were to share some of the layers of information, which I'm going to do here in a moment, I should also strongly consider doing the same for them, documenting the name of the layer, of course, what this layer represents, and perhaps credits for where I got this content, okay? I'm going to package this parks layer up in just a moment, but before I package this up, do I need to share all of these fields? The answer is no. Do my users need to see my object ID or my FID or some of these other values that may be considered cryptic? No, they don't. Let's turn them off. I'm going to grab name, and notice that I've set an alias here for my park name. So rather than having a cryptic looking field, name1_ that may not mean something to our users, I can give it an alias, park name. I can do the same for this acres field. I'm going to set an alias for park acreage so people easily understand what it is I am sharing and what I'd like them to understand about this data. So now that I've documented this data and packaged or prepared it to be shared, let's create a layer package. To do that, and before I do this, if any of you are listening right now and want to follow along with me, you can bring up your web browser and go to arcgisonline.com because we're going to do some interesting things here in a moment. I'm going to click on this Parks feature, and I want to share it with all of you. So I'm going to create a layer package. Let's call it Austin Parks. I'll save that to my desktop. I just successfully created that layer package. All right, it's ready to save. I can give it here to Charlie. I can email it to somebody, or I can come to ArcGIS Online and post it directly to ArcGIS Online. And once I do, you all can discover this content. Now, before I go to package my content, let's take a brief tour of ArcGIS Online. Here is the homepage of arcgisonline.com. So if I go to the search category and just enter in a word, let's search on Houston. Here is all of the information that pulls up the keyword Houston. All of these are things that have been submitted by participants of ArcGIS Online. And I can open up and download these layer packages. So let's see, all of them look to be layer packages. There could be some services as well. And I can immediately start using these services, okay? I also am signed in using my ESRI Global ID, so you can do the same thing. And here is the content that I am sharing myself. So here I have some map services, a web map, an image service. I even have some layer packages inside of here. So I'm going to share that parks layer that I just created with you. So I'm going to do that by clicking Add File. I'm going to browse to my desktop, grab the file I just created. Let's call it Austin Parks. I'm going to give it a couple tags that are going to make it easy for you to find. So the tag I'm going to use is LTS. I'll also add in Austin, Travis County, Texas. Okay, so I'm going to add this item, uploading this item right now. Every user of ArcGIS Online has 1 gigabyte of free storage, so I can load my content up, and I have a gigabyte of space that I can work with. So all of you have that as well. Let's edit my layer a little bit. I don't like that it says Emma Long Zilker Park as my main dialogue, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this and give it a little bit better looking picture that I created using the template we had there in ArcMap. So I'm going to save this, and here you just see a picture of the map that we had for our parks in Austin. All right, so I just uploaded this. Let me make it so that you can find it. So I'm going to share this. I'm going to show it. I have my option. I can share it with everyone, which I'm going to do, or I can share it with specific members of a group. So if I only wanted to share it with members that I approve that are going to participate in the Better Ways to Design and Share Maps group, I could just uncheck everyone, and the only folks that can see that are folks that I allow access to this group. But I'm going to let you all be able to access it and say, okay. So those of you that are following along, if you go to arcgisonline.com and you enter in the search LTS, you should be able to find and download the parks layer that I just opened. Let me go ahead and open it up myself. I'll open this up. Okay, so I just downloaded it. Let me turn off, we're back in our Austin map. I'll turn off that group layer. Here's the parks layer that I just added back in on myself, and let's see what happens when I go to identify a park here. Take a look at the aliases and the values that come back. They're exactly what we set up and how we wanted to control that layer package to be viewed by others. So there's a real significant value in being able to quickly package up our content, give the user everything they need to do. If I want to open up the layer properties of this layer now, I can do whatever I want to it and use it for my own purposes. So let's recap what we just talked about. We certainly talked about best practices for sharing our maps and sharing our layers. We introduced ArcGIS Online, and I forgot to show you. Let me bounce back to ArcGIS Online real quick. I'll go to the home dialog. There's a video right here in the bottom left corner that goes over exactly what I just talked about. So you can click and play this video to learn a little bit more about what you can do with ArcGIS Online. If you'd like to share this with other folks that might not be watching the live training seminar right now, this is a great resource to teach others how to use ArcGIS Online. So at this point, Charlie and I are happy to take some questions. We got some good ones, Charlie?
Yeah, Adam, thanks. I got a number of questions that kind of filtered in based on the last section. I want to get those out of the way first, and then we'll cover the questions about what you're doing with ArcGIS Online and how to share maps. So first, we got Henry from Topeka who's asking, how do I know that the template is using a representation, and how did Adam figure that out? And what we've done with the getting started document was tried to give you all the little gotchas like that up front. So if you read that getting started document that's in the map template download at the root level of the zip file, then you should get that essential information. In some of the templates, we've also included additional documents in the documentation folder that get into some of the more detailed things that we've done to prepare the data that maybe aren't essential, but as you go forward, you may want to learn how to do those things to improve what's in your template. Let's see here. So we have Henry from Omaha. It's interesting, two Henrys, and my son's name's Henry, so that name's becoming more and more popular. Do uploaded layer packages on ArcGIS Online become available via the REST API? And no, the layer packages are just available think of it as a file repository. That layer package is just essentially a zip file, but instead of .zip, it's .lpk. So it's just a file that you can download. The REST API, for those of you who might not know what that is, that's what we, by default, publish ArcGIS Online maps services and data services to. And that's like an open API that anybody can program against if they can discover where your services are being served from. So if you create a map service, a web programmer uses that API to create maps and queries and so on from your service. Let's see here. Wade from York asks, regarding the style sheets, does that just affect the color and size, or does it affect all the placement properties? And what he's referring to is when Adam was assigning the label placement properties from the style, it was actually taking everything together. So if you look at the style, there's actually a couple of things that are going on there. There's the idea of a text symbol, which he could have used in the labeling dialog as well to just set the properties for the text symbol. But a shortcut for what he was doing was to combine that with everything that was being used to place the labels on the map as well. Let's see here. Dan from Santa Rosa asks, do I have to do extensive detection adjustment or conflict detection adjustments with my layers if I'm using a template? And that's a good question because it's actually kind of dependent on what your data has in terms of conflicts. So there's two kinds of conflicts that we might be talking about. One is that maybe your data, let's assume it wasn't yours and it was prepared a little less than professionally, and you know that there's things in there that you'd rather not have a lot of people see. Symbolizing the data with a template isn't going to fix those things. So yes, you would have to go in and fix your data. You may also have data that are very detailed. They're intended to be used at very large map scales. And in those cases, as you zoom out and try to show that same data at progressively smaller scales, the probability that the map symbols will collide with one another as you zoom out gets greater each scale you zoom out. So you may or may not want to even try to do the graphical conflict detection tool and see what symbols are colliding with each other. And it's kind of a decision you're going to have to make as you go. So the idea is to take your data, have a look at it, and have a very close look at it to make sure that what is drawing in your map is actually legible. It does take a good bit of time. Our professional services group here at ESRI uses our data reviewer product, which is going to be the subject of an upcoming live training seminar, to do a thorough job with that kind of work. And so I would suggest it really depends on your data, but you could definitely consider doing that. Let's see here. Mark from Chesterbrook asks, have templates been set up for overprinting, or are they designed exclusively for online use? We haven't explicitly set any of the templates up for, say, 4-color offset presses. Instead, for the templates where we're expecting to print from, we're expecting to use process color, but it doesn't stop you from going ahead and changing those to CMYK color specifications. We've generally done our best practice of not creating new color objects every time we turn around, so that as you change colors to CMYK colors, you're working with a consistently small set of colors to do that. But you still have to do that work to set things up to do that 4-color offset press workflow. Okay, so now moving on to some of the ArcGIS Online and sharing questions. Bert from Eli asks, can you share a group layer? And absolutely. So Adam was just showing how he was sharing one feature class and layer by right-clicking and saying create layer package. You can, with ArcGIS 931, create a layer package with a group layer. So all the data sets that are used as for the layers in that group layer will be copied in to the geodatabase that's inside of the layer package, and all the layer specifications will be there as well. Let's see here. Teague from Atlanta asks, can the LPK file be stored in a geodatabase, or does it live as a separate file? It's actually a separate file. And like I was saying a little bit earlier, it's actually a zip file, but we just changed the ZIP to LPK. So it doesn't live in a geodatabase, but you can also use the LPK file to view the data, and then you can save that data as another data set in your own geodatabase if you'd like to. See, Doria in Hillsborough asks, can layer packages created in ArcInfo be used by just people with ArcMap? Are they backwards compatible? And if it's created in 931, can it be used by somebody in 9.3 or earlier? That's kind of a tricky question, but the idea is that we've been creating our layer packages with the intent to share with people who have the same version of software as us. However, the layer packages, let's say, for instance, if somebody would create with ArcGIS 10, if it doesn't depend on any of the new functionality or symbology in ArcGIS 10, then it can be opened up in 931, for instance. You can also kind of stack the deck, so to speak, where if you save your map document as a 9.3 map document, or excuse me, a 931 map document, then you would guarantee that you would be able to save that layer package to a 931 user. Let's see here. We've got a few questions that have come in the last couple minutes here. Let's see. Okay, Mikkel from Fort Lauderdale says, I noticed the templates are not global. Only what I see are like our local data. Like, for example, there's a local government template for Fort Pierce. And that's right. What we intended to give you was enough data that you could see how we built that map. And the difference here is that we're making a map template to assist somebody who's going to author a map and potentially serve that map or share that map with somebody else. We've also used essentially what the basis for these templates are to do ESRI's ArcGIS Online map services, like the World Street Map and the World Topographic Map. And those are services that do cover the globe. So if you just want to use the map, you can go to the ArcGIS Online website and search for the maps and map services that we've already produced that do cover the globe. And let's see here. Let's see. Ken from Kamloops asks, when you upload or publish a layer, does your data not go with this, or how do you serve the data source? Well, there's two ways you can consider doing this. So if you follow what Adam had done, he had local data, and it was in a map on his computer. And when he right-clicked on that to create the layer package, it created a file locally. He went to ArcGIS Online and uploaded that file. That LPK file, though, does contain a copy of his data. So that data is not only copied, but it's copied into a file geodatabase that's inside of the LPK file, and then that database is also compressed. So that way you're getting the smallest possible representation of your data in order to make it more transferable. And the other way of doing this is you can also create a layer package, and this goes back to that group layer question earlier as well. Is let's say I want to share, let's say I've got some data that show where pronghorn antelope range over the course of a year in Wyoming. And I've got point data, but that data doesn't look very exciting by itself. I could put a base map in as a map service layer and then publish that group layer. And that group layer will then have the base map and my pronghorn antelope observations. And that's a map package I can share with somebody that gives them a much richer story. And so that's what I would recommend in terms of kind of taking advantage of the best of both of those worlds to give somebody a good answer. That's all the time I've got for answering questions. I'll turn it back over to Adam to wrap things up.
All right. Thanks, Charlie, and thanks everyone for for your questions. Before we go, I'd like to point you to a few more resources that I think can help you learn a little bit more about the topics Charlie and I discussed today. There's some instructor-led training classes. We also have a free nationwide seminar, Better Ways to Design and Share Maps. So we've got a website for that, and we should have registration starting pretty soon for that. And you might want to go there and take a look at what city we might be coming to that is near you. Your comments help us improve our seminars, so please take a moment to take a look at the survey we have. Did you like this? Did you learn something? What topics maybe should we consider presenting the next time to help you do your work better? So take a look at the Give Us Feedback link, and please fill out that survey. We hope you enjoyed today's seminar, and on behalf of ESRI, Charlie, and myself, thank you all for attending.